What is up, Pack-A-Day Podcast YouTube members? Welcome into our members-only Q&A. It is Tuesday, March 10th. We are in the midst of free agency season, and a couple things just happened. I got home from my son's soccer practice, and I ate a Luigi's pizza way too fast, and a sausage went down the wrong pipe, or right around there, and so I might be dying, so I'm going to try. I think I'm okay. I just had a bunch of Gatorade. I think I'm okay, but if I sound a little bit weird, or if I clear my throat a couple times, no, it was a sausage pizza related incident, and I'm okay outside of that. Number two, more importantly, Max Crosby trade just fell apart. The Raiders just released a statement that said that the Ravens have backed out of the trade. And as of now, Max Crosby is still a Raider. And this is significant for a variety of reasons. Number one, I'm sure the Raiders proceeded with free agency as if A, they had salary cap space available that they weren't paying Max Crosby, and B, as if Max Crosby wasn't on the team. Now, the Raiders are rebuilding. It's not, from a signing standpoint, it's not that insane, but they have to kind of pivot quick. They should still have plenty of salary cap space. They were well under, and it's, probably not nuclear crazy by tomorrow, but I bet if they had their, way about it, they'd probably like to get this Crosby deal done, right as the league year is starting tomorrow. That is crazy. That is absolutely crazy. And of course, the bad news here from a Packers standpoint is that it's much more likely that he ends up in the NFC now. The Patriots were in, but they spent a lot of money. This could have a domino effect in a variety of different ways. I'm so interested to see how this plays out from here on out. I mean, they accepted the best offer, right? They should know what that second best offer was, so they can immediately go to that team and say, hey, are you still willing to do this? But man, this is crazy. Usually if it's like a failed physical, it'll say like, the deal was offered, it'll get announced right away as like trade was vetoed because of a failed physical or something. But this was just the Raiders released a statement. The Baltimore Ravens have backed out of our trade agreement for Max Crosby. We will have no further comments at this time. That's it. That is wild. The NFL, man. What a drug. What an absolute. I mean, it's the best of everything. It's the best of athletic competition. It's the best drama. It's the best soap opera. It's like WWE is happening all the time. There's always something that's going on. Somebody might as well be getting hit in the back of the head with a steel chair at any given moment. It's just crazy. There's always something. And this is why it's usually never too much of an issue to be talking Packers and NFL 365 days a year. And I know right now is a busy time, but man, oh man, what an absolute crazy situation. And of course, Trey Hendrickson still out there too. That affects his market. There was a situation where they said, hey, well, they reported that he's going to make a formal announcement tomorrow on what team he's choosing. Wild. Absolutely crazy. Obviously a big day from a Packers standpoint. I will get to all of your questions here momentarily, but obviously a big day from a Packers standpoint as well. Maybe not as big as we were hoping for, or others were looking at, for it to be. But first and foremost, Benjamin St-Juste, brand new corner. This is a corner I talked about that I really liked as sort of a value free agent type signing, coming off the best year of his career. Cheap, right? Not super expensive. Tons of special teams value. He's big. He's long. He's pretty athletic. He's not pretty. He's very athletic for his size, and he fits very well within Jonathan Gannon's defense. We'll break down that trade tomorrow, of course, on our main episode, or not trade, but signing on tomorrow's episode. But really, really like that deal for Green Bay. And then Sky Moore, somebody who I put on my list of under the radar free agent targets for the Packers, if you guys listened to that show. And it was for exactly this reason. Green Bay's top 5 wide receivers are going to be, at least as of now, barring some crazy trade, right? Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Matthew Golden, Dontavian Wicks, Savion Williams. Those are their 5. Those 5 really not going anywhere. You have sort of Bo Melton out there that is probably going to be a special teams wide receiver, defensive back, breaking case of emergency guy that probably gets 150 snaps somehow, no matter what, right? Which I love Bo Melton. But you really had that number 6 wide receiver spot open. And what you're really just looking for, you don't really need a crazy developmental player. What you're looking for is somebody who fits the offense, who can play in an emergency or in a pinch, but also that can give you a legitimate returner. And Sky Moore does exactly that. He's coming over from the Kyle Shanahan system, so he fits the offense very well. It's the height, weight, speed metrics that Green Bay usually looks for. Former second-round pick, still young, but the biggest thing is he's a legitimate kick return and punt returner. They got a returner. They did it. They got a returner. Of course, other news and notes throughout the course of the day as well. Elton Jenkins is officially a Cleveland Brown. So that's an interesting one. Romeo Doubs is a New England Patriot. Apparently, he wanted to go West Coast. He went the exact opposite direction. I think with Justice yesterday, we were talking about potential landing spots, and I said New England, although it's on the wrong coast, but that's a good landing spot for him. And then, Reek Woolen, somebody that we had been keeping an eye on as sort of the last big free agent signing that I think Green Bay would have had a legitimate level of interest in. He's off the market. A pretty reasonable deal, 1 year, $15 million for Reek Woolen. A little bit surprised Green Bay wasn't in on that a little bit more. It's possible they were. It's possible they offered 1 year, $15 million, and the Eagles offered 1 year, $15 million, and he said, I'm going to the Eagles. It's possible that they said, we'll give you 1 year, $16 million, and the Eagles said, we'll give you 1 year, $15 million, and he said, I'm going to the Eagles. You just never know with that stuff, but it would have been a pretty reasonable deal for Green Bay. Again, they did get a big athletic corner, but Reek Woolen certainly has a lot more. What did I just do to my ring light? Has a lot more experience and just a lot more, big game playing, including the Super Bowl last year. So yeah, Woolen would have made, I think, a lot of sense. But again, he's a Philadelphia Eagle. So there are sort of our updates for today. Probably missing a billion things, but those are the big ones. I don't think Sky Moore is going to nuke a comp pick. I think he's going to be under the threshold, and I kind of trust Goody to be smart enough not to nuke a 5th round pick for Sky Moore. Also, one thing to note is even if it technically did, you can kind of make that decision in cut down time still, where if you cut him at cut downs, you would position yourself back to have that comp pick again. So you're not necessarily nuking it, even if you did, nuke it as of now. You could always release him still in camp and still get that comp pick later. But I digress. Let's get to all of your crazy questions, or not crazy questions, but amazing questions on this crazy day that had a lot of news, notes, moving parts, etc. Most hated Chicagoan. Happy Tuesday, Andy. Happy Tuesday to you as well, my friend. Really enjoyed Mike Wall's discussion on Jeff Hafley. Hopefully Gannon or Matt can fill the leadership void. I predicted 5 offseason trades and 2 so far. Good is on fire. Go Pack, go. 3 to go. 3 to go to make your prediction right. I think they could potentially get there. But certainly losing Hafley and some of the leadership is going to be tough. But Jonathan Gannon, listen, he graded well for his coaching ability in Arizona. The players really seem to like him. There's some rumors already that Josh Sweat asked for a trade as soon as they fired Jonathan Gannon. So I do think he's actually going to be able to fill that void in some real significant way. So not super concerned about it at the moment, but it will be something to sort of keep an eye on through the course of the season. So far, it feels like there's been a lot of activity with the Packers, but I think I feel worse as of right now. Very interested to see the plan on the D-line. I think what's interesting is every player that walked so far for Green Bay, I wouldn't have signed any of those contracts other than Sean Ryan. In fact, I like the Sean Ryan deal. Totally cool with that. So I'm good with bringing him back. I'm good with letting everybody else walk. There hasn't been, you could argue the Reek Woolen one, but there hasn't really been a free agent signing where I'm like, what the hell? Why didn't you do that? That was a great deal. It was a bad free agent market. I do think they're going to get involved when some of these players get cut. I do think, that Javon Hargrave probably comes over, and I think they're going to probably, add still a couple other players. I'm sure are going to be involved in the trade market. We still have a draft left. I love the fact that they got a 4th round pick for Rashawn Gary. Elton Jenkins was the right move to cut him. They cut Nate Hobbs today. That was the other one. They cut Nate Hobbs today. Sorry, I buried that one. Like I said, we've had so much going on. They cut Nate Hobbs today. I agree with that assessment. Everything that they've done so far, I don't have a major issue with. I don't like the Wooden for Franklin trade, if I'm being honest. That's one that I probably would not have done, especially knowing that the linebacker market wasn't that bad. I probably would have went hunting even in the Devin Lloyd market. I would have paid $15 million a year for Devin Lloyd and not thought twice about it. I even would have probably looked at some of the other guys too, but I think Lloyd would have actually made a decent amount of sense. And then you would have still had Wooden, and I would have felt better about that too. But regardless of how you feel about any of that stuff, I think you can still look at this team right now and say, all right, I don't feel great about corner. Yeah, they get St. Juice, but Hobbs is gone. Still a lot of Nixon, still a Valentine, and there's still not a lot of answers at that position. And it's not like St. Juice is just like this no-brainer. Well, clearly he's going to be the starter. He's going to have to compete for everything. He's going to be a high-end special teams player that will have the opportunity to compete, I think, for a starting role as well, as of right now with Valentine. And I'm sure they're going to address that position in the draft as well. But corner certainly still lends itself to some questions. I actually think Franklin still opens up some questions at linebacker, if I'm being honest. And the defensive line and edge right now are still major question marks. You cannot feel the team right now. And again, I want to be very crystal clear on this. It is March 10th, April, May, June, July, August, September. We are 6 months away. We are 6 months away from a game that they actually have to be competitive in. There is a ton of time. There is no game this week or the next week or the following week. We've still got about 24 to 30 weeks of this stuff going on before we have to worry about them putting a team on the field. But right now, they could not feel the defensive line. They could, but it's Nasir Stackhouse at nose tackle is probably what you're looking at. Carl Brooks and Devontae Wyatt at defensive ends, and LVN and probably Baron Sorrell as your edge rushers until, Micah gets back from injury. So that is a not a barren wasteland, but it certainly leaves a lot to be desired at the moment. And then on the flip side, I have no major concerns about the offense, but offensive line was not good enough a year ago. And you basically said, we're going to move on from Elton. We're going to move on from Rashid and keep everything else the same. And we expect it to get significantly better. And I've talked about the reason, or like the how of that could, how that could happen. Jordan Morgan getting full-time left tackle work. I think he's meant to be a left tackle. I think that's going to help him. And I think he can be better than what Rashid was a year ago. I really do. I think Aaron Banks can be better in year 2 and just hopefully healthier. And when he was healthy, he played pretty well. Sean Ryan getting a full year at center. The run blocking was a lot better when he got to center and Belton went to right guard. And then Belton playing a full year at right guard and getting, again, his year 2, hopefully a year 2 jump from him. And then Zach Tom just being healthy. I think there's reasons that O-line can be better, if not even maybe significantly better. But it's a leap of faith. And so I still have questions on the O-line. I have a ton of questions on the D-line right now. And I really don't feel any better about corner, although, again, I do really like Benjamin St. Juste. So I do feel better about the special teams. They brought back Neiman. They went out and get St. Juste who can play. They have a returner now in Sky Moore. And they have a new special teams coordinator. I'm a little bit intrigued by that, but that's not enough to make up some of the other deficiencies at the moment. So Pack-A-Day Fanatic, again, love that name. To just kind of echo what you're saying, there's not any individual move, either what they should have done, could have done, have done, didn't do, etc., that I look at and say, oh, I really hate that. Again, other than maybe the Wooden for Franklin trade, but I'm willing to give the Wooden for Franklin trade just a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. But I still right now feel a little bit empty with what just they have done and just missing out on some things that I think they still need to upgrade this roster with. But plenty of time to go. Let's give Goody a little bit of time to see how he adjusts and makes some of the changes to some of those spots that we just talked about. Find it hard to believe that Goot and LaFleur had all those offseason meetings and they agreed that bringing back the same players and same coaches would be just the trick for the O-line improving. We just kind of talked about that. Seems like a lot of whispers about the Packers making a trade. How do you compare this to what you were hearing with Parsons at the time? Nothing like Parsons. The Parsons stuff was loud, like aggressively loud. What I will say, though, is Green Bay specifically opened a pretty big chunk of salary cap space. They restructured Aaron Banks. They didn't need to do that. They released Nate Hobbs with a June 1st designation. They didn't need to do that. They not aggressively, but they added 3 void years to Xavier McKinney. They released Elton Jenkins and they traded Rashawn Gary. They have a amount of money to go out and spend in a pretty decent way. And when you're June 1st releasing players and doing full void restructures and some of that stuff, that is a pretty significant tell that you want money to spend now. And I've seen a lot of people say, well, yeah, of course, they're going to extend Christian Watson. They're going to extend Devontae Wyatt. They're going to extend, just kind of the core. Tucker Kraft is the other one. And yeah, I think Kraft and Watson are coming, but Watson might add a little bit to the salary cap. Kraft might add a little bit to the salary cap this year, but Wyatt is going to, if they extend him, would take money off the salary cap this year in all likelihood. You're kind of breaking even with their salary cap hits this year. Maybe it's going to take up a little bit more, but those primary, extensions and raises are going to come in future years. They still wouldn't have needed to do all of that stuff just to extend those players if they wanted to. And they could have pushed it out a ways to make it so that they really didn't have to affect this year's salary cap at all. So yeah, I still expect extensions to happen, but the mechanisms that they've used to open up salary cap space would tell me they are planning for something. But at the moment, it's very difficult to say or see or have vision on or even a hypothesis on what that would be. There's nobody left in the free agent market that makes a ton of sense. There's not anybody that's been cut. We talked about Javon Hargrave. I think he's probably coming to Green Bay, but with it being, Hargrave, I don't think he's going to get a significant contract. He'll get a decent contract, but I don't think it's going to be crazy. And they still could do stuff above and beyond that. But there's no other release players that at the moment I'm like, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Unless they're going to just go and get like Hargrave and Jonathan Allen on the defensive line and get both of the Minnesota Vikings and just say they were miscast in the defense a year ago and we think we can remake them in Green Bay. I guess you could theoretically do something like that. But they have gone out of their way to open space and they have not filled it yet. So Goody's cooking something. I don't know what it is. I don't know how it's going to taste when it's done. I don't know how we're going to feel about it, but he's cooking something, and I fully expect something still to happen here. All right. Most hated Chicagoan, Romeo, 4 years, 70 to the Patriots. The chief superpower is drafting and developing corners, and our superpower is wide receivers and quarterbacks. Historically, would love for us to somehow draft Lance and or Hurst at wide receiver. Lance is an interesting one. Haven't had a chance to watch Hurst yet, but yeah, they're very good, and I wouldn't be shocked if they drafted a mid, 5th, 6th round receiver. But, again, with getting Sky Moore, they don't have an opening at the moment, but I still think they'll be active in looking if the right receiver falls to them. Joe, I love that you're having an argument with a coworker, and thank you for the super chat. Do you think the main problem with our wide receiver group is how LaFleur utilizes them and what they are good at? Joe, I don't think that there's a major issue with the wide receiver core. The biggest issue with the wide receiver core last year is that we never got to see Watson, Reed, Golden, Kraft, and Jacobs on the field at the same time. If they have all of those weapons out on the field at the same time, they're going to cook. And you still have Wicks as a backup. Savion Williams is up and coming. Their wide receiver core is in a really great spot. And I think they're going to be even in a better spot this year. Maybe not better. Dobbs is definitely a loss, but we never got to see this group fully healthy. When Reed was there, Watson was out. When Watson was there, Reed was out, and then Kraft goes down, and we just didn't get to see it click on all cylinders. So I think that's the biggest thing, and I think they're going to be in a great spot with their wide receiver core. Thanks, Andy, for hanging with us for 4 hours yesterday. It was a blast. Happy to do it. Thanks for hanging out with me, Mirko. I appreciate that a ton. Don't know why, but I have the feeling that the Packers will make a splash move this offseason. Not quite like the Micah trade, but something noteworthy. Never happy for someone losing his job, but it's good business to cut ties with a player who underperformed. Your thoughts on the Hobbs and St. Juste roster moves? Yeah, we talked about St. Juste. Like that pickup. We'll be doing some tape study tonight on that. I love the pickup because he only played like 400 some defensive snaps, so it's not going to take me 1,000 plus snaps to grade all of his snaps in the offseason here. But no, I do like the pickup. And I think with Hobbs, the way that Hafley's defense was set up, and it's going to be a little bit different under Gannon, but I talked about this last year. The way it was set up, I think there was a feel, and I don't necessarily totally disagree with it, that you could take kind of a slot corner and move them outside. And because there's so much zone coverage, there's so much communication, guys are moving everywhere. You're moving corners to safety, safety to corner, slot guys to outside. Outside is like all these guys are moving pre and post snap. That I honestly didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal. There's a few things here. Hobbs always, even with that being said, Hobbs always projected best as a slot corner. And once Javon Bullard took that job and said, no, that's my job. Well, he didn't have that anymore. And when he did play outside corner, it just didn't go the way that I think anybody expected it to go. And to the Packers' defense, this wasn't some crazy leap of faith. Hobbs played a bunch of outside corner with the Raiders. It wasn't in his previous year before, but he played a bunch of outside corner. And for the most part, he was fine. It's not his best trade or skill, but he was fine. I truly believe that the biggest thing here is he's primarily a slot corner. I don't think he fits quite as well in Jonathan Gannon's defense anymore. He didn't play well a year ago. He got 3 different knee injuries. And I'm sure Green Bay is very worried about that. When a guy gets 3 different knee injuries in the same year, you're just worried of like, when is this going to go again? When's the next issue going to come up? So I just think it was everything all encompassing. Bullard stepping into that slot role and owning it. Him not looking great at outside corner, I think partially due to injuries. Him suffering 3 different injuries and him not being a great fit for Jonathan Gannon's defense. I think you get to all 4 of those things. And it just was time to move on. I don't think he was a perfect fit all the way around. And so they move on. Some other team will pick him up, make him a slot corner. Probably will have a decent year if he can stay healthy, but it just wasn't a fit here anymore. I think Goody was right to make that move. Again, I think St. Juice is a good pickup for Green Bay, especially at the price they got him at. I am not ready to suit up and play nose tackle. I went to my son's 2nd grade gym class today and did activities for half an hour, and I was exhausted and in pain. So no, that was enough. I'm good. I was meant to be in front of a desk talking to you guys with a microphone in front of me and not trying to get to a quarterback through a 300+ pound offensive lineman. Would not end well for me. One thing that makes me worry a little less about nose tackle, go do a mock draft sim from rounds 2 to 5, lots of nose tackles for sure. But there's no guarantee that they're ready to come in and play at a high level either. And there's always some concern with that too. I think Green Bay will be active in the cut down market. Ashawn Robinson was cut today. He was somebody in our simulation that I kind of just put as a placeholder for Green Bay. I could see them potentially being interested in him. He wasn't great a year ago, and he was in a pretty good spot in Carolina defensively. So that's noteworthy. The Ashawn Robinson, Dalvin Tomlinson, Javon Hargrave. I would expect a couple players in that market. And then I do think they're going to be active on that position in the draft pretty heavily as well. And yes, they did actually sign a returner. We love to see that. What's going on? We got 39 notifications. Just want to make sure nothing crazy is going on here other than the Crosby news. So the Ravens did fail Crosby in his physical. Weren't comfortable with what they saw. Interesting. Don't think there's anything else that happened. Just want to make sure with all the madness going on. And for those wondering, no, Max Crosby will not be a Packer. Interesting. All right. Would you have done the Woolen deal at $15 million? This is an interesting conversation. I am not a big Reek Woolen guy. He's fine. I like the size, the height. I like the little bit of swagger that he plays with. He's obviously coming off a Super Bowl win as a boundary corner. But he's not necessarily my typical cup of tea. I didn't love it. I didn't always love the mistakes, the attitudes, the penalties, things like that he had. But there is zero question that Reek Woolen would have immediately been the best corner on the roster. And there's really not much question of, hey, there's just not much out there to sign. So for a variety of those reasons, he did make sense. I do think he's a really good fit in Jonathan Gannon's defense as well. So I would have been definitely, if nothing else, okay with it. I wouldn't have had any issue with it whatsoever. I would have been more for it because it's only 1 year up to 15. So he's probably going to get like 12 or 13, maybe even less, but probably 12 or 13. And so for that on a 1 year deal where he wants to go out and play his best so he can get another big contract next year and not have to, worry about a long-term deal where if it doesn't work out, you're like, oh my God, how are we going to deal with this dead cap hitter? I would have been very much in on that. And I'll just say one more time, Green Bay easily could have been. They could have gave him the same offer, or even a little bit more, and he could have said, sorry, I want to go to Philly. Sometimes that's how it works. We just don't know. We're not privy to that information. But yes, if you would have said Woolen to Green Bay 1 year up to $15 million, I would have been probably pretty good with that deal overall. They signed a returner last year, but they didn't roster one. I do think this is a little bit different. I understand the comparisons between Mecole Hardman and Sky Moore. I think Sky Moore is just a little bit better and younger and just fits better with what Green Bay wants to do. There's no guarantee that Sky Moore will make the 53. We could have the same situation play out all over again, especially if Green Bay drafts a wide receiver or more. That's going to make it very complicated for Sky Moore to make the team. But I do think there's a much better chance that Sky Moore makes this team this year than what Mecole Hardman was last year, sincerely. So yeah, I think it's a little bit different, but there is certainly some similarities there. Andy, can you clarify if the Packers can extend Christian Watson now? They can extend him now. Ken Ingalls has been on top of that from day one. they do have the ability. They did structure it in a way where they can extend him now. So anytime they want to get that deal done, they can get that deal done. And yes, he is more than salivating. He is going to get the bag. You're probably looking at 4 years, 120 million, something in that range. It is going to be a massive deal. And we talked about it with Justice yesterday of like, what's the number? Or like, I guess I shouldn't say that. I should say, what's the trade value that you would have to get to move on from him? Because if you're worried about like the injuries and saying, hey, you just can't finish seasons, like I'm cool with like 4 years, 80, but I can't get to 4 years, 120. But some team's willing to give me a top 40 pick. Man, it gets interesting then, right? I love Christian Watson. I want him on this team. I think Green Bay is going to keep him on the team. I think he's going to get that extension. I'd be lying to you right in the eye, or at least in the camera, if I was saying I felt totally comfortable with 4 years, 120 million for Christian Watson when he hasn't been able to finish a season yet. That absolutely gives me trepidation. And I'd be pissed at the Packers if it didn't give them some hesitation. I want Watson back. If they sign him to a 4 year 120, I'll get it. I'll understand it. I'll have no issue with it. Honestly, I think it's the cost of doing business. You have to take some risks sometime and know that, hey, yeah, he could get injured. He could continue to have those problems, but he brings so much to this offense and really showed that he can be a true number one wide receiver. It's the going rate. So it's an interesting conversation though, but yeah, he is salivating for sure. Kwity Paye signed a 3 year, $48 million deal, very comparable to Van Ness, and there will be inflation. I think you probably pick up his option. Yeah, I expect Green Bay to pick up his option. I'll just say one more time, I want to make him prove it. I would let him go out and earn his money this year. And if he plays awesome and you have to now play him, 4 year, 60 instead of 4 year 48, or sorry, 3 years 60 instead of 3 years 48. All right, so be it. He proved it to me. I'm happy to pay the extra money. Whereas if he just goes out and plays terrible next year, well, now I didn't, have to pick up that option. So I'd probably be willing to gamble with it a little bit more and make him prove it. But if they pick it up, again, I will totally understand that as well. It's right on the fringe, one way or the other. Is that Packers 2028 first round pick still tied up from the Parsons trade? No. 2026 is, right? They owe it this year. 2027 is, they owe it next year, but 2028 is not tied up. They can trade that one if they wanted to. And remember, you can't trade past that. There is a rule in the NFL. You can only trade 3 years worth of draft picks. I know there's some organization apparently that's floating the idea of extending that, but for now, you can only trade 26, 27, or 2028 draft picks. So if you wanted to trade a 2032 first, you can't do it, or 2029 or 30 or whatever. So the only first round pick that they have access to right now to put in any trade is a 2028 first round pick. I do think Sky makes the team. I do think it's different than the Hardman signing, although it's similar, it rhymes if nothing else. And I think that there is a real solid chance that Sky Morgan makes the team though, but he'll have to earn it. He'll absolutely have to earn it. No question. Are we in a better spot with the corner we signed than the corner Philly did, or does it really not matter? No, I mean, Woolen is better than St. Just. It would be very difficult to make an argument that St. Just is better than Reek Woolen. If he was, he'd be getting in the same sort of market of 10, 15 million per year. But I really do like St. Just. I think he can be a good corner. But no, Reek Woolen's had a lot more experience. I will put it this way, though, Ben. I can probably make the argument that I'd rather have Benjamin St. Just at his contract than Reek Woolen at his. But the Woolen contract's not that bad. It's really not that bad. So no, I think the Woolen one is probably a little bit better there. HBK Forever, thank you so much for the super chat. Super happy for Romeo, but a little concerned for us. Romeo was our red zone guy. I know Golden will step up, but Sans the onside kick, sorry to open that wound. Romeo's hands were great in the red zone. Yeah, listen, they still have options, right? Christian Watson, Matthew Golden, Jaden Reed, Tucker Kraft, Savion Williams has the ability to be a kind of possession guy. Luke Musgrave, they're not gonna, want for red zone options. They're gonna have those, and the goal too is to run the football better so that Josh Jacobs can continue to rack up touchdowns too. I'm not overly concerned about it. Dobbs was good in that area. He absolutely was, and we're gonna see if he can earn that money out in New England. But they have a plethora of options, and I think some of those guys will take the step up with that opportunity given to them, especially in the red zone. What big move are the Packers working on for tomorrow? Who would be your dream player to add? The first part, I don't know. I'm really struggling to kind of figure out who that player is. I will tell you my dream player, though. It's never going to happen. There's no chance of it happening, but Trent Williams would be my guy. I would do everything. I would move mountains right now. Listen, I know that Jordan Morgan's set to play left tackle. We can put that on hold for a little bit. I wouldn't even hate it if San Francisco said, hey, we want Jordan Morgan in the deal. I think Williams plays for 3 more years. I think he's that good, that talented. I know he's old, but he's a machine. He's an absolute machine. So I would have those conversations, and I would do everything I could. I think Trent Williams added to that line with Zach Tom. You have the best tackle duo in football. I mean, what a hell of a start for your offensive line. The best tackle duo in all of football, bar none, hands down, 0 questions asked. That's a hell of a start. And then, Sean Ryan at center, Aaron Banks at left guard, Banks and Williams familiar with each other at the left side of the line. And then, if Morgan is back, you just let Belton and Morgan fight it out at right guard. And may the best man win. I think Belton probably wins that. And then you have Morgan as your super sub for anybody that gets hurt. That there's a lot to like about that. It's never in a million years going to happen. It would take a lot. I actually don't think the comp would be that crazy to get Williams at this stage of his career, but the salary would, and it'd be very, very difficult to do. But I wouldn't preclude me from trying it if I were Green Bay. That would be my dream. You asked me for my dream. It's not realistic, but that's my dream signing. If this is it and they keep their picks and make no more moves, could even an excellent draft constitute Brian Gutekunst doing enough this offseason? No, not along the defensive line. Their offensive line is probably set. They'll probably add some competition on the back end of the roster. Their corner room could be set. Like they'll probably add a player in the draft would be my guess. But there's no way that you can compete right now with the defensive line the way that it is. It's an impossibility. So if you got lucky in the draft and you drafted, defensive tackles in the 2nd and 3rd round, and they were both amazing, and you drafted a corner in the 4th round and they were amazing, sure, you could probably still make a run at something. But no, I would argue that barring something miraculous in the draft, they just can't compete on the defensive line right now. So no, they would, at this point in time, it would not be enough. They still have work to do, especially on that defensive line. Yeah, we talked about the Crosby deal. Crazy. Hypothetically, if Goody shopped Watson, could he get a 1st-round pick? Yeah. The reason I'm very confident in that is I think teams would rather have, I could be wrong. All right. I could be biased, could have some green and gold tinted glasses. I think teams would rather have Christian Watson than AJ Brown at this point, just based on some of the difficulties with Brown, the contract situations, the kind of decline that he had last year too. I think people would rather have Watson than AJ Brown, and AJ Brown will go for at least a 1st. So yeah, I do think that they probably would get a 1st for Christian Watson. Might be close. Maybe it's pick 32 or 31, or maybe it's pick 33, 34, but I do think it would be very close to being able to get a 1st-round pick, if not maybe even a little bit more for Christian Watson. I don't know why I'm a good man, Engine, but thank you so much. I appreciate that. In what world do we have the capital to trade for Jalen Carter? You have the capital. They want a 1st and 2nd round pick. You could trade a 2nd round pick this year. You could trade a 1st round pick in 2028, and you probably need a sweetener because they don't want the 2028 1st. You might have to add a 3rd round pick next year. I would be willing to bet you if you did like a 2nd, a 2nd this year, a 3rd next year, and a 1st in 2028 with like a Carl Brooks or something, or a Dontavian Wicks, I bet you that gets it done. I bet you that is enough to get it done. If that's not enough, add another 3rd in, add another, they have the capital to get it done. I mean, they have a bunch of, still 2nd, 3rd, 4th round picks this year. They have 2nd, maybe multiple 3rds, multiple 4ths next year. They have a 1st, a 2nd, a 3rd, a 4th the year after that. There is at some point that you would put enough on the table that would be like, all right, yeah, we'll take that. So they have the capital. It's just how many draft picks do you want to give up, or how many players do you want to give up to make that work? I would be stunned if Jalen Carter were a Packer, but hey, if they found a way to get it done, sign me up. So be it. Yeah, that was a crazy time to go live. Okay, let's talk Hendrickson for just a moment. I'll start by saying 0.2% chance. We're not in that probably tax bracket to get a player at that $30 million a year level. I know I just made the case for Trent Williams too, but I did make the case for Trey Hendrickson. I forget which episode that I did. I think I maybe did some like off the wall free agency ideas. And I made the case for Trey Hendrickson. I said, hey, don't go mid-tier hunting, right? I don't need a mid-tier corner and a mid-tier linebacker and a mid-tier offensive lineman. If you're going to do something, go get me a Trey Hendrickson and put him opposite Micah Parsons and let me see what that looks like. How insane would that be? Like, if you are late in the game and Green Bay has a lead, if you're talking about closing games for Green Bay and you have a lead, good luck throwing it when Trey Hendrickson and Micah Parsons are rushing at you from the opposite side. Good freaking luck. So again, I don't think they're going to be in that bracket. I could make an argument as to why it would make some sense if you're going to go any sort of big game hunting. But yeah, again, you're just asking if it's closer to Julius Peppers. I think Peppers is probably a little bit better at their stages of the career, but I think Hendrickson would still be a real big time value add, and he would certainly be a ton of fun with Micah Parsons. But yeah, not going to happen. Long off season to go, but I'm not feeling it compared to other teams. A long off season to go, is what I'm assuming here. But yes, let's stick with that. Lot of off season left. Micah was not even in the wildest imaginations of Packers fans on March 10th a year ago. All right, so let's give it a hot second and see what transpires from here on out. I don't know what the Cowboys are doing. I never really know what the Cowboys are doing. They're a bizarro franchise, and Jerry Jones operates it in a very unique way, and you never know what they're going to do next. I have no idea, Matt. I do love football as well, Autumn. You and me both. Yeah. Can't have the sausage go down the wrong pipe. There's probably a connotation there that probably came across the wrong way. Appreciate that, Matt. We actually got a returner. Never thought I'd see the day. My hopes for competent special teams went from about 1% to 2%. It's never going to happen, Alex. Don't get your hopes up. We don't get our hopes up on special teams. Not here at Pack-A-Day. We are all things optimistic, except when it comes to special teams. But no, in sincerity, I am very excited that they did get somebody who, at least on paper, should be able to help their return game. Absolutely insane. Yeah, the Crosby stuff is insane. And Mitchell, yeah, there were a couple of people yesterday that did give some memberships out. So shout out to them. That was awesome. And Mitchell, glad that you were able to take advantage of that. Ooh, thundering here. Packers have lost a lot more in free agency than they have gained. Definitely, I'm worried. Well, let's see what it looks like at the end. Also, this was always going to happen. They were always going to have multiple big players. Like Dobbs was always going to go. Sheed was always going to go. Quaid was always going to go. And Igbari was very likely to go, right? Like they had a variety. Malik was always going to go. We knew they were going to release Elton. We're insanely lucky they got a 4th round pick for Rashawn Gary. That is like the absolute best case scenario in that situation. So nothing so far is unexpected. All of this was expected to transpire. And some of these, like Enigbari, Baron Sorrell is your new Kingsley Enigbari, right? That they drafted him ahead to be the next Kingsley Enigbari. Matthew Golden and Savion Williams are here to replace Romeo Dobbs, and eventually, maybe a Jaden Reed or a Dontavian Wicks next year as well. They're trying to get ahead of that stuff. They don't have a replacement level player in place for Malik Willis, but it's tough to get that really good number 2 quarterback. We'll see what they do this offseason. But yeah, a lot of these they've tried to take steps. Rasheed Walker, Jordan Morgan is here for a reason. He was always here to replace Rasheed at left tackle when it got to this point. They've prepared for this. We've known it was coming. And now, again, they have some money to play with, and let's see what they ultimately do to kind of fill the rest of these holes that need to be filled in through the remainder of this offseason. Obviously, there are the fringe Jalen Carter rumors. Any chance they are talking to Hendrickson, though, do you think? I feel like all the cap space can't just be for extensions. I agree with you on the second part. I don't think it's just for extensions. I think they're going to do something. I do think Javon Hargrave will be a Packer, but it feels like there's something more. I just don't have a pulse on it. You guys know me. I have at least some hypotheses, right? Like I think they might do this, or I think they could do this. Right now, I don't have a great feel for what that thing is, which leads me to believe maybe it's a trade, but I don't think for Jalen Carter, but it leads me to believe maybe they're working on something from that side of things. But no, I don't think Carter is going to be it, and I don't think Hendrickson's going to be it. If you're the Ravens, do you just sign Hendrickson and keep your picks? The revenge game twice a year? Could. That's an option. You're feeling it today if you're a Ravens fan, thinking you had Max Crosby and now you don't. You get your picks back. That's nice. But yeah, they are going to have to pivot in some way. Not a great time to do it at edge. Jalen Phillips is off the board, but at least Hendrickson's still out there. Certainly would be an option for Baltimore if they wanted to go in that direction. What happens to the Raiders with all that money they just spent? So Crosby's still under contract with them because the trade couldn't be completed till tomorrow anyway, right? So they had the money to spend on all those free agents already anyway, although the order of operations will be interesting, but they'll find another trade for Crosby would be my guess, but it certainly is not the ideal situation. Just trying to see if there's anything else going on here. That's crazy. He was in Baltimore today, meeting with people, and the medical just wasn't good enough. Logan Hall to the Texans on a 2-year deal. He was somebody that I know, just a defensive tackle. I know people were interested in him for Green Bay. Don't think he was a perfect fit, but he's a good player. I really do like St. Juice for 2 years, 10. That's a good deal. Going to add a lot of special teams value too. Even if he doesn't work out as a corner, he basically amounts to like a high-end special teams ace, which I think he can be very good at. So not a ton of downside there. Eagles will still be Green Bay until proven otherwise. Seattle is the champs and the Rams look like a juggernaut. We're always looking up to a few teams. Yeah, I'll just say this one more time. If Green Bay was healthy last year, they would have been competing with all of those teams. And I still think the same way this year. With Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, Watson, Tucker Kraft, Zach Tom, Devontae Wyatt, Micah Parsons, LVN, Edgerrin Cooper, Xavier McKinney and friends, they have as much talent as anybody to go out and make a run at this thing. So I understand the sentiment, Ralph, and they have to go out and prove it. But if they're healthy, they're not looking up to very many, if any at all. They just got to put it all together. And there's still, again, holes on this team. Don't get me wrong. We've talked about those, but if they can work towards filling those, I think they're going to be in a very good spot. Andy, credit to you for never overreacting and always having a balanced approach to the Packers and its decisions. It's one of the great aspects of Pack-A-Day. Greg, I appreciate that a ton. Thank you so much. Don't think they're going to get Crosby. Be fun. Don't think that's going to happen. Also, we know, right? It was 2 first-round picks. They don't have 2 firsts. Could they do a first in 2 seconds or something like that? Sure. But the money would be really, really difficult. And they just, it's tough to put together that deal when you've already traded away 2 firsts. Holy cow, not the Packers, but Ravens back out of the Max Crosby deal. Yep, we talked about that. Officially worried about every defensive line position. I know we have young guys, but how did Free fit the scheme with who is left in free agency? I think ultimately you're asking, like, how are they going to fix it with who's left? I do think they're going to be active in the cut market, and I'm sure they're going to be very active in the draft as well. But it's the 1A question, David, is how they fill out this defensive line group for the remainder of the offseason. Definitely a major hole right now. Can you explain why 2027 is such a big year? Like Perry mentioned, I was confused hearing that too, because we were told the Micah window was mainly 25, 26. All right, so 2027, they are going to have a little bit of salary cap space to utilize, is the likely projection right now. I think too, you're probably just looking at, guys being a little bit healthier and a little bit older. They're not really, they could lose Jaden next off season. Why? I don't know. I guess I'm not really ready to go there yet until I see how they handle Watson, Reed, Wyatt, and some of these, players who are set to be unrestricted free agents next year. I want to see that first, and then I'll tell you, and what some of the contracts look like, Tucker Kraft, etc. Once I get there, I'll have a better feel for if 2026 or 2027 is a better window for Green Bay. Also, with just what they do with the salary cap space this year, we'll know soon. But it's a good thing to keep an eye on. But I think right now, I'll just put it this way too, Engine. The next 2 years should be extremely competitive. They have I still think a 2-year window, 26 and 27 for sure. I don't know that 27 right now is better than 26, but 26 and 27 are wide open. And then you're going to probably get to the point where you really make some difficult decisions and have to kind of maybe make some pivots at that point in time. It's not popular, but the corners did kind of hold up when Micah was there. I know they switched Hobbs for St. Juice, but any chance they're thinking that it's just Micah and pass rush will fix it? I hope not. I think they, and Goody said too, they need more competition in that spot. I do think they like Nixon more than the fans do. I think they need more competition overall though. And I've said for a while now, just feels like they're a guy short. Like if they had a number 1 corner and then Nixon goes to 2, Bullard's in the slot, Valentine and St. Juice are your top 2 backups. and then like Kamal Haddon's your 5, you feel really good about that group. But it just feels like they're missing that number 1 guy. And if they could just get that, it would solidify things. And it's going to be tough, but I do bet they draft somebody at that spot and have them compete at corner with obviously what they have already. Yeah, the Crosby thing is crazy. We'll see what happens to him. Oh yeah, go Packers. It's my bedtime though. I'll try to listen tomorrow. All right. Have a good sleep, my friend. Dallas was a finalist for Crosby. This could cause them to back out of the Gary trade if it meant they got Crosby. I don't think so. I hope not. That would suck. I would hate that. It would be brutal. I will say this. You can back out of deals for failed physicals. Just backing out of deals because, hey, something else came up. That's a bad thing. Like you will lose agents and trade partners and a lot of connectivity by doing something like that. So I would bet that Dallas would not go in that direction to pivot off of Gary. If they wanted to do Crosby, they'd probably do it in addition to Rashawn Gary would be my expectation. Or they could also like pivot it into a 3-team trade and Gary goes to the Raiders, or like they could do some stuff. But yeah, I don't see them backing out of it entirely. Yeah. Failed physical for Crosby. We talked about that. We have the opportunity to draft 3 cornerbacks and 3 defensive tackles. Sure. I think at some point you have a law of diminishing returns, right? Or, but they need to upgrade those spots for sure. As we all know, the Packers can back out of that linebacker deal. Yeah, I don't see that happening either. The current roster for the defensive line is a bit worrying. There just isn't enough in free agency to fill it. All and everyone after the super young or is either super young or a rookie. So trade or 2027. Again, let's give it a hot second. They'll be aggressive. I think Hargrave will be in that conversation. They're definitely going to draft somebody. I have a feeling they'll find a way to get 1 or 2 more guys in there too. Let's give it some space to breathe a little bit. Can we just get Campbell already? Calais. Yeah, he'd be fun. I would love him on the team. Packers Twitter is such a cesspool. It's unbelievable how many people are complaining about us not making a blockbuster trade for guys we can't afford rather than acknowledging the moves that we've made. Yeah, I think there's oxygen to be frustrated if we get to the same point, a month from now, 2 months from now, or just once we see the 53, right? If we look at the 53 and, it's Nasir Stackhouse, Warren Brinson, Carl Brooks, Devontae Wyatt, and maybe just Javon Hargrave. Yeah, you'd say like, yeah, they didn't do enough on the defensive line and we can complain about it. And it's probably legit, right? But we have a ways to go at this point in time. And I'm willing to give them that oxygen to say, hey, let's see what they do first. Fear of missing out of what? GB Gary, you're here. To be clear, too, I hate the decision if they are done at corner. Just wondering if that is their thinking, because I was expecting something significant, especially with what Woolen ended up signing for. Yeah, again, it's tough to get to a point now where there's a significant corner to get, but we'll see. We'll see if Goody can pull something off. Oh, I'm not saying Franklin's going to be terrible or whatever. I'm just saying based on the tape, the metrics, what I've seen so far, I have my concerns. That's all I'm saying. Just have my concerns. David, thank you so much for that. Appreciate you a ton, my friend. Campbell and Hargrave would be more cost-effective than Carter. Can't lie, though, nuking the draft the next few years for this window does offer some masochistic euphoria. Well said. I can't one-up that, Boss Iron. Well said. I don't think Chubb. Maybe Chubb. I'm not a huge... I've already had enough, faux pas today with my sausage take at the beginning. I don't know if I can say... Not a fan of, there's too many Chubb connotations here too. But Hargraves, I think, does make sense. Maybe Chubb. Cutting Hobbs with post June 1st is a huge indicator that something big is coming. I'd put an asterisk next to big. Big is not necessarily true, but it feels something. Something is coming. Goots usually hesitant to cut people he invests capital in. King and Amari Rodgers until a year after they should have. Amari was not. Amari was in year 2 they cut him. King was definitely well after they should have. But yeah, it does feel like something is on the way. Just imagine if they did get Carter, I would fall off my couch. It would be crazy back-to-back years. I'll do my best to schedule something in Chicago. I don't think I have anything. I take that back. Okay, great news. I'm going to be in Illinois, right near Chicago, in Schaumburg, Illinois, not this weekend, but the following weekend. I'm going to be in Schaumburg, Illinois. So buckle in. Last time I was in Illinois, Micah Parsons, I'm a week and a half away. from being in Schaumburg, Illinois. My son has a soccer tournament. I will be in Schaumburg. Buckle up. Buckle up. Get ready. Put it on your calendar. What is the date? Save the date. March 21st. And I think I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there on the 20th through the 22nd. So I'm going to be in Schaumburg, Illinois, 20th through the 22nd. Last time I was in Illinois, Micah Parsons. There you go. Save the date. We're 10 days away from and it was as soon as I got in Illinois, as soon as I got in Chicago. So if I get to Sunday and they haven't done anything yet, I'll get into Chicago. I'll go from Schaumburg to Chicago. I'll just drive a little bit extra just to, see if I can trigger something. Yeah, I saw that. No one can smell what the Good is cooking. Not right now. Crosby's crazy. What do you hope Goody is cooking up with all this cap space? Yeah, just defensive line and corner as best as possible. But you just look at the free agent market and there's just not anything super enticing that's left. Hendrickson would be fun, sure. Again, if you could trade for Trent Williams, awesome. I just don't see either of those happening. And so it's tough right now. I would be scouring the trade market. Jerry and Jones is somebody I'd still been talking about at corner. Yeah, I'd be digging around. I'd be seeing what I could figure out. Is there some way via trade? I would have loved if they traded for Tavondre Sweat. We know they traded him, but yeah, right now it's difficult to find that perfect move that they could make to just kind of fix some of the things that need fixing. All right, Good cooking low and slow. Maybe we get some studs for the trenches. That would love to. I just don't know who at this point. When the Rams make moves, it's worth swinging for the fences. When the Packers make moves, at times it's like, let's check, swing, bunt. Yes, Parsons was big, but you need to swing more. Ralph, I think this is categorically false. This is categorically false. This is a GM that is now signed to varying degrees of success. Jimmy Graham, Adrian Amos, Adrian Amos, Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, Josh Jacobs, Xavier McKinney, Aaron Banks, Nate Hobbs, and traded for Micah Parsons. Those are all significant moves. Those are all very significant moves. So I don't buy for a second that this is a GM that's fair, that is afraid to take a big swing at anything. That was a top of the market tight end, top of the market safety, top of the market edge, top of the market running back, top of the market safety, top of the market guard, top of the market slot corner, and one of the second best defensive player in football. That is not an insignificant. Those are not swinging bunts. Those are all-in type of moves, or at least aggressive moves. So listen, Ted at the end, absolutely. But somehow Goody is carrying that moniker of what Ted did at the end of his career. And it's just not true for Goody at all. It's categorically false. Even just trading 2 firsts and a player for Micah is as big of a swing as you get. It's as big of a swing as you get. So I know right now this year, this offseason, they haven't taken that swing yet, but throughout his tenure in Green Bay, he is, in the years where he didn't take a swing, he didn't have salary cap space available. Every single time that he has had salary, in large part due to COVID, by the way, in every single year that he has had salary cap space, he has made an aggressive swing. And I still think at least one is coming this offseason. I just can't figure out what the hell it is yet. But I disagree with that entirely. I think he's made multiple big swings to try to inject some real legitimate talent onto this team. You never know with Jerry Jones. You never quite know. Titans low-key having a brutal free agent frenzy, spending like wow on questionable talent. Yeah, easily my biggest loser of free agency so far. And above all else, I don't believe the Jalen Carter rumors have any legs because he wouldn't be a culture fit. The Packers almost never touch guys with an off-field reputation close to his. Thoughts? Yeah, they've gone a little bit, they've stretched those boundaries a little bit as of late. But yeah, I can't get to Jalen Carter too from just what it would take to get him. And I don't think they're going to mortgage that much of the future for another defensive lineman. I don't see it. I'll be surprised in a variety of different ways if they do it. I don't know how much the culture stuff is going to play a part, but for a variety of reasons, I just don't see it happening. I don't think he's a one-hit wonder and a total bum. That I can't get to, Matt. He's still a good player, but how great he is, your mileage may vary, but he's still a very, very good player. Yeah, 2.5 million. Was the 2.5 actually guaranteed? I haven't seen that yet. I'll have to take a look at that a little bit closer. The defensive tackle I always wanted on this team is Jeffrey Simmons. Yeah, I don't think you're going to pry him from Tennessee. They've been very reluctant to move on from him. So I don't see that happening. Would love that, though. He's a really good player. I do believe that Easton is a legitimate source. Yes. Don't know how or, what he's doing to get his stuff on practice or on like practice squad and cut down days. He has been at or ahead of, almost anybody that has been on the beat. He's been incredible with that stuff. I know he was all over the Micah stuff in a variety of different ways. And I've had conversations with him at that time where he knew stuff that it was before anybody else was knowing. So I do believe that Easton is a legitimate source. I can't back that up with anything. Choose your own adventure as to whether or not you want to take it at face value or not. But from what I've gleaned so far, it does seem like he is connected in a real legitimate way. Don't know how, but yeah. Definitely not a one-hit wonder. Dude is an absolute stud on the field. What I'm saying is the Packers don't babysit thugs no matter how good they are. Yeah, I don't think that's been an issue in Philly so far. I know some of the college stuff, but I don't think that's been an issue in Philly. Yeah, don't see Max Crosby coming to Green Bay. Going rate is one thing. Market resetting is another. Okay. Once they signed St. Just, I knew they were out on Woolen. I don't think that that's necessarily true. Would have nuked one of the comp picks. I think that's fine too. You're fine nuking a 5th round comp pick if you want to get something like that. That's not the end of the world. Where it gets difficult now is like, do you want to sign anything that's like lower mid tier? Do you want to sign any of like the 5 to 8 to 9, $10 million players when you are going to nuke a 5th round comp pick? Are they worth that? Because now you're giving up, whatever the contract is plus a 5th round pick if you want to sign a player like that. So now it gets complicated. If you're going to sign Reek Woolen or a top tier player, you don't care about giving up a 5th. That's not a big deal. But now it becomes a bigger issue if, like, again, you want to sign another mid-tier player, small tier player. Now you have to give up a 5th. That's probably not as much worth it. And so that's where it gets a little bit more complicated. Yeah, they could. Certainly it helped. But again, it's still at pick in hand. You just don't just want to throw it away too. So it's worth thinking about at least. Yeah, 4 comp picks plus Gary. It's not Goody. Any GM wants as many as you can get. You want the picks, but you're not afraid if the right deal comes along. It's just harder to pinpoint the right deal now that you'd be willing. Like, is there a player out there that you're willing to give up the comp pick plus the contract? And it's just getting harder to figure out who that player would be. Thought at one point the Cowboys and Packers 28 first-round picks were tied up because if the Packers traded Parsons to the Eagles, etc., they'd owe the Cowboys the 2028 first-round pick. I have to go back and look at that. I don't think it went quite that far. But what you can do, even if that were the case, Pack-A-Day fanatic, is if you wanted to trade the 2028 first-round pick, you can go to Dallas and say, can we amend this in some way, shape, or form? And usually they're going to be amicable to it. You might have to throw them a little bit of something, but you can usually work on those things if absolutely needed. Hopefully Crosby doesn't end up in Chicago or Dallas backs out of the Rashawn trade to go after him. I don't think that will happen. Don't think that'll happen. Balsich, good to see you, my friend. I love bringing back former Packers. What are the chances we bring back Aaron Jones or Kenny Clark if he's cut? Kenny's not going to get cut. He got restructured today, so he's going to be back in Dallas. So that's done. I don't think Aaron's going to be back. Aaron would be back maybe if he were still available in season and Jacobs got hurt, or if Jacobs got hurt and some team had Jones and weren't using him and Green Bay could flip a 7th round pick for Aaron Jones or something, then it could happen. But I don't see it happening in free agency. Can Sky Moore play out of the backfield a little bit as well? Maybe. I'll have to go back and watch him a little bit closer, but that's probably not what you're bringing him in for. I'll just put it that way. And yep, Kenny is staying. Clark is staying. You guys are all over it. Would it take more to land? It would definitely take more to land Jalen Carter. He's younger, prime of his career. Trent wouldn't take as much. So Jalen would take much more to go get. Maybe Philly really wants something on our team. Maybe. But if they really want something, is it something that you want to give up? That's the bigger question. Hobbs deal was brutal. $18 million for 1 year of an injury-riddled and uninspiring Nate Hobbs. That sucks. Respect for swallowing the pride and moving on, though. Curious what could have been if we had made a different move. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Yeah, hindsight's 2020. You wish they would have done something different. They didn't. It didn't work out. It sucks. but credit to them for moving on and recognizing it. But 18 million for 1 year of Nate Hobbs is pretty freaking brutal. I'm surprised Rashid is still available. I still think he's going to get 20 million plus. I don't know on what team is going to sign him, but my guess is what's happening is Sheed and company are looking at the Dan Moore contract from a year ago, and they're sticking firm on that, or they have a price point that they even want above that because they think he's better than Dan Moore. And they're saying it's going to take 22 million, on a 4-year deal or a 3-year deal, plus incentives for you to sign us. And so far, no team has got to the level that Rashid's team wants. And so they're staying firm. They're saying, if you want us, this is the number. This is the number. This is the number. And maybe teams are saying, all right, fine. We'll wait till that number comes down. If somebody gives it to you, great. We're not going to do it. And so I think Sheed right now is waiting it out and trying to get that number that he, kind of ultimately wanted in free agency. That'd be my guess. I'm hearing on Twitter they can back out of the Gary trade now. Yeah, I don't think they will. I really don't think they will. Spider monkeys, you actually scared me for a second. You scared me for a second. Don't do that, spider monkeys. Are we thinking they freed up the cap space for Reek Willen and then lost a bid off, or is there something else in the works? Based on what he went for, my guess is they didn't lose a bid off, or they didn't have like a bird in hand thinking that it was already there or whatever. I think that he was an option for them, but I think they can probably pivot. I'll say it one more time. I don't have a great feel for what they might be pivoting to from here on out. Justice said Dallas is in on Max and could jeopardize the Gary deal. Just checking some stuff here. Don't think I have anything that would clarify that as of yet. Yeah, I don't see anything yet, but I'll keep an eye on that. And I guess I can just look at Justice's feed really quick to see if he put anything on there. Sorry, just doing some research quick. Give me a hot second. Yeah, I think we're okay. I'd be pretty stunned if Dallas backed out of it. All right, when Micah talked about how he almost got traded to the Eagles, he talked about wanting to play with Carter. Goody, let's go. Well, that wasn't going to happen because Carter was going to be in the deal for Micah if Micah went to the Eagles. So yeah, they were going to get traded for each other if that deal went through. Yeah, they can because the deal's not done yet. It's not signed. It can't be done until tomorrow. But it's really, really a bad look unless there is a injury, which Gary doesn't have. So they can. It'd just be really, really bad business for Dallas to do so. Seconds and wide for Carter. Yeah, that's probably what you're looking at if it were to get some sort of deal done there with Philly. Think we have any chaos tomorrow with other deals falling through indirectly because of the Crosby situation? Like I said, it opens Pandora's box a little bit. I don't think so, but man, this is why the NFL is great. We have no idea. Sure, this is already covered, but the Sky Moore signing cost us a comp pick, right? It does not. I don't believe so. It's $3 million or more. His contract's under $3 million, but there's incentives. There's a little gray area there. My assumption, don't know this 100%, but my assumption is that Goody would not compromise a 5th round pick to go get Sky Moore. So I don't think he's going to count against the comp pick formula. Don't 1,000,000% quote me on it. But again, even if he did, if they cut him before the end of this, or at the end of training camp, or even technically in season, but if they cut him before the end of training camp, it would still come off the comp pick books, and then Green Bay could get their pick back at that time. So either way, it wouldn't be set in stone as of yet. But my guess is Green Bay probably would not do that, knowing that it would have cost them the comp pick. Packers getting a returner means they're fully in, and you can't convince me otherwise. Really, though, how do you rate the gains and losses so far for the Packers? Thanks, Andy. Go Pack, go. They're definitely in a net negative at this point in time, but you're asking to grade the test when the test takers only filled out 3/10 of the questions. Like let's let them finish up the test and go back and check their answers and finish everything before we start evaluating it, right? Or it's like you're evaluating the final house when only the foundation is built. It's like, yeah, I mean, the foundation looks good. All right, I'm going to give it a C minus. Let's see how the rest of the house is built up before we make any jumps to conclusions. But right now, definitely a net negative for the offseason. Wonder what Nag's tweet means. I love the Packers too, but what have you heard, sir? What did Nagler say? This is why the Packers don't announce anything until business is done. He's just making a commentary on what happened. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see anything crazy from Nagler, but yeah. I at the moment I'm not super concerned about the Rashawn Gary thing, and if it happens, it happens. But at the moment, I'm not super concerned about it. Anyone who doesn't think Goody swings for the fences is clueless. And we can use kinder words than that, but I disagree with the assessment that he doesn't swing. Yeah, Goody does have some guts. I totally agree. More Ted Thompson or more Ron Wolf than Ted Thompson. The more signing makes it less likely that they'll draft a wide receiver, which makes it more likely Wicks is back. I don't think that they'll pass on a wide receiver if the right one's available because of Sky Moore on a 1-year deal. That isn't, a lock to make the roster. Again, I need to see the full contract for Sky Moore, but I think they would still take a wide receiver in the draft if the right one fell to them. Maybe not round 2, but in general, I think they would. The hell are they waiting for on though? Unless it's someone we are not mentioning. It takes 2 to tango. They got to find the right player that fits them. It's a really bad free agent class. It's not great at all. And that's where I go back to. There's not a single signing so far that's happened that I'm like, oh God, that was such a great deal. Why couldn't have Green Bay have done that? It really hasn't been. The Chanel one was pretty good. The Lloyd one, the linebacker markets maybe the difference. The linebacker's the one where, again, instead of trading for Franklin, if they just would have got involved in especially like the Lloyd market, I would have been totally fine with that. But you could give him 3 years, 45, and he could have said, I want to play in the warm weather in Carolina. I'd rather go there. You're not guaranteed to get him at that either. So it takes 2 to tango, and it's not a great free agent market. And Green Bay, I'm sure, doesn't want another Aaron Banks and Nate Hobbs situation where they give a huge contract to a player that they got to cut next year and have egg on their face for. So I'm sure that they're trying to do everything they can to make sure that they're trying to be aggressive and find the right guys. But if the money just isn't right, or the player isn't right, or the position's not right, you can't force it. And when you force it, bad things happen, which is what, honestly, we saw a year ago. We got St. Juice. Now time to get Big Citrus. Could be. Never know. Jeffrey Simmons, Dexter Lawrence, Derek Brown, all potential defensive tackle targets. Great defensive tackles on teams not close to championship level yet. I don't think you're going to get any of those teams off of those players now. Trade deadline, maybe. Trade deadline, maybe. I think all 3 of those could be possibilities if Carolina, Tennessee, and New York are not in the playoff picture. Would have signed that Ravens tight end the Chargers got. I'm done with the Musgrave experiment. Would have still kept Musgrave, but what is coming with him. Yeah, so $8 million a year, and it would have cost you a 5th round comp pick. So are you willing for Charlie Kohler? Are you willing to give up, $8 million a year, have it be one of your big free agent signings, and give up a 5th round comp pick to go sign him? I like Charlie Kohler. I think he'd be a really good fit in Green Bay. I'm not sure I would have went that aggressive to go make that one of my bigger free agent signings. And I really like him. I like where your head's at, Ralph. I really do. Just not sure I could have quite got to that level for him. 2028 might be a good year to go all in on offensive line and try to score 40 a game while only giving up 39 a game. I don't know what that means with 2028, David, but maybe. Aaron Jones would be so good for the locker room again. That's fair. That's a totally fair point. I don't see it, but it's definitely a fair point. Andy, this is Jerry Jones we were talking about. You don't think he would back out of a trade? He's old. He might have forgot he traded for Gary. I actually think that Jerry Jones actually, for this sort of stuff, has honor with it, that he shook hands on a deal and he did that deal. I don't think he would back out of it for the sake of backing out on it. I really don't. I could be wrong. I actually think that Jerry Jones would stick up for that. And again, if you ever want to deal with Green Bay again, you can't back out of that deal. That takes a team that in draft, if you want to trade draft picks, like the Green Bay has a draft pick you want. I'm not just saying this year. Like, as long as Goody's in Green Bay, if you back out of that trade, Goody's not dealing with you anymore. So you have to be really, really careful with that stuff. And Rashawn Gary, and I know Gary's kind of got his own agent, but if Gary was with a specific agency and then that team backed out of that deal, they might not want to work with Dallas as much. Like it gets very messy very fast. So, you never know, Jerry, but I actually think he would have some level of honor in honoring a deal that he sort of shook on, for, lack of a better term. Am I crazy for saying I wouldn't be willing to include Watson in a Carter deal? No, I don't think it's crazy to want to hang on to Christian Watson at all. He's a hell of a player. This offense is totally different with him. If anyone says they want to keep Christian Watson, I totally get that. Totally get that. No updates on Marshawn Lloyd. Can you do a quick update on what's happened in Packerland today? Just got out of work. Thanks as much for the coverage, Andy. Yeah, signed Benjamin St. Juste, corner. Cut Nate Hobbs. Elton Jenkins is a Brown. They signed Sky Moore, a wide receiver / kick returner / punt returner. And Romeo Doubs is a New England Patriot. And Max Crosby's deal got backed out of by the Baltimore Ravens. I think that's where we're at. I think those were the main things from today. Reek Woolen signed with the Eagles, not with the Packers. Justice APC article. Cowboys still interested in Max Crosby after failed physical. There's potential for Dallas to renege on the Rashawn Gary trade. Yeah. Again, I don't think it's going to happen. I understand where Justice is going with that, but I really don't think it's gonna happen. Yeah, Gary's gift that keeps giving. More faith in the defense than that. I'm just asking how they'll lose the game every time we have a late lead. Gotcha. You should get Justice in on happy hours or Q&As every now and then. That would be cool to see you guys. We did do I don't know if it was a members Q&A or a happy hour together. We did one not too long ago. And then obviously he was on with Perry and he came in on the live show earlier this week. So yeah, we've had him on a couple lives as of late. So happy Goody went and got a returner. Hopefully he makes the roster. I think he will. Goody doesn't swing. Did we forget about the Micah trade already? Yeah, he definitely takes his swings. Who made a tweet saying, hot damn, I love the Packers? Rashawn? Who made the tweet? No, Rashawn still got the other one. I don't know who made that tweet. Panthers defense is going to be pretty scary next year with how they've started free agency. I'm interested in Carolina. They had a hell of a year last year. Yeah, Canales has done a phenomenal job with that team. Oh, Nagler said, hot damn, I love the Packers. I think he's just meaning that like this stuff doesn't happen with Green Bay, but I could be reading into that too. Yeah, I mean, it was injury related. That's in, again, eye of the beholder to some extent, as Justice said in his article. But yeah, it's if you don't feel like you can pass the physical, I mean, giving up 2 first-round picks in a massive freaking contract, you have to dot your I's and cross your T's and make sure that that is the right player that you're getting and that everything checks out medically. If you can't do that, then yeah, you have to kind of back out at that time, as sucky as that is. Maybe in too deep, definitely am. Any good blocking tight ends in the draft or free agency? Don't even think Andy has went that deep yet. Too much football nerd sometimes. Not left really in free agency. It was kind of Kohler or bust, which is why he went for as much as he did. I haven't got to that point in the draft yet, but we'll definitely get there eventually. All right, friends, I do have to head out. Got to all of your questions. Thank you so much for all the wonderful stuff. I really appreciate you guys a ton. We'll be back Friday for happy hour. Of course, I'll be back tomorrow talking a little bit of Benjamin St. Juste and everything that happened in free agency today. I will see you guys then. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.